Hey everybody, I'm Christina. I'm a pianist and accompanist. I've been playing piano for a very long time, 30 years. In that time, I've spent thousands upon thousands of hours practicing piano. I've picked up various tricks and advice on how to practice most efficiently and make the best use of your practice time. Most of these tips can be applied to learning any instrument really. They're not necessarily piano specific, that's just what I play. And there are a couple of specific things that might not apply to you, but hopefully this video can be useful to a variety of musicians. Okay, so let's begin. Here are 6 things to help you practice piano smarter and make the best use of your practice time. Okay, so tip number 1 is my best, most important piece of advice. So I'm going to start with this one. Practice small chunks of music. I have seen so many students, and am very guilty of this myself, who play their songs from start to finish and think that that counts as practicing. And it kind of is. You will improve, you will get better slowly over time if you do this, but you're not really honing in on the problem areas that have been giving you trouble. So every new song you learn is going to have some trouble spots, difficult sections that you have to work through. If you're just kind of glossing over them when you play, or maybe sweeping them under the rug and pretending they don't exist, you're not really helping yourself learn that piece faster. It's not a good use of your time if you only have 15 or 20 minutes and your song is 5 minutes and you spend 5 minutes playing it from start to finish, and the majority of that is stuff you already know. To make an analogy, think of this as like massage therapy. Your therapist wouldn't be very good if they started to work on you and they just kind of went over your whole body one time and then started over and went over your whole body another time. They hone in on those trouble spots, those knots that you have. And think of practicing like this, like that. This is my massage pantomime, apparently. Find the areas of the song that are giving you trouble, hone in on those, work through them, go straight to those sections at the beginning of your practice session and just focus on those. Break them apart, play them out of context, maybe turn it into an exercise if you can. Play right hand and left hand separately. Figure out what fingering you want to use. All of those things. And then just repetition. Just keep working that section until it starts to feel smooth. Put your hands back together, play it slowly, and then maybe back up a little bit in the piece and try to get into that section. It may still take a few practice sessions to get it worked into your fingers, and that's okay, but I guarantee you the next time that you are able to play the piece from start to finish, that section will be so much smoother. The piece as a whole will be more cohesive. You can think about the whole direction of the piece more because you're not just kind of scooting past those problem areas. Do this with every new song that you learn. Play it through a couple of times, get a feel for it, identify the problem sections, and trust me, you will know where they are, and work through those first. Spend most of your time on those sections, and I guarantee you will learn music so much faster. Okay, tip number 2, another super important one. Please mark your score. I cannot stress this enough. Make notes in your score to help you remember what your teacher said, what you think you need to do, whatever it is. Make notes. Write directly in the music so you can see it. Use colored pencils or highlighters or whatever you need to so that your eye is drawn to that note. Do this to circle notes that you're playing wrong consistently. Write in the fingerings that you want to use. If you need to write in notes as to what emotion you want to convey in a certain section, do that. Write it in, anything to help you remember. You can't possibly remember all the corrections your teacher has made, what fingerings you want to use for every passage. You can't. Almost no one can remember all of these things all the time. And there's no reason to try to remember when you can just write it in there. If you have a teacher and they've fixed a note or made a correction and you go home, forget about it, didn't mark it in your score, and you come back and are continuing to make the same mistakes, It's just a huge waste of your time and money, and also their time, your teacher's time. It's their job to point out mistakes to you. If you continue to make the same mistakes over and over again, it's your practice that suffers. I still write in my score all the time. I will sometimes just write the note name in a huge letter because for whatever reason, my hand wants to go to an E even though it's very clearly a G written in the score. And I can see that it's a G, but for some reason my brain just doesn't want my hand to go there. So I'll write it in. Next time I'm playing that song, I'll see a huge G written in the score and I will go exactly to the right place every time. If you're learning on your own and don't have a teacher, you need to be even more vigilant about this because you don't have that extra set of eyes checking your work. And if you continue to make the same mistakes over and over again because you weren't careful or you didn't circle it or whatever, it's so much harder to try to unlearn that mistake and to relearn it the correct way. Trust me, if you learn it right the first time, you're saving yourself so much time. Okay, so here's a picture of a score from when I was learning this Clementi sonatina a million years ago. And as you can see, there are almost more markings from my teacher and me than there are actual notes on the page. If you play from a tablet, make sure that you have a PDF editor or a program that lets you make edits directly onto the page and you can write them in with a stylus. I like to zoom in really close, make the note, and then zoom back out so it's not huge. Please do not be afraid to mark your score. There's no reason you need to try to remember everything that you want to fix. Don't be a hero. And it's so much more impressive to a teacher to show that you've actually been working on the score and that you've been thinking about these mistakes and fixing things, as opposed to just a blank piece of paper. Okay, number 3, listen to other great pianists. Listening is such a great tool. And with YouTube and Spotify at your disposal, it's so easy to find countless great recordings and really rare recordings as well that you would never have had access to otherwise. Yeah, no more hunting down in the bargain bin, looking through a huge pile of CDs hoping to find some classical music. It's so easy now to find numerous great recordings of the same piece by various artists. So listening critically is not only a great way to inform you on the technical aspects of a piece, how it's supposed to sound, but also give you a variety of stylistic ideas. Now, when I say listen critically, I don't mean try to imitate any of these pianists. That will lead you down the road to madness, I guarantee it. Don't try to sound like Horowitz, don't try to sound like Glenn Gould or whoever. You are not them, you are you. Try to sound like you. Now, that doesn't mean you can't take ideas from various artists and try to incorporate them into your own playing, but do not try to imitate their exact sound or the exact way that they play things. Listen to their style, think about how they're creating a particular sound, and think about what you might have to do with your hands or with your intention in your playing to recreate a similar sound. I would recommend listening to an array of performances just so you don't get one particular recording in your ear. You may subconsciously try to imitate that recording even if you think you're not. So I would say listen to a lot of people so you can not only hear how one piece is performed a multitude of different ways, but so you don't accidentally start to try to sound like them. The great thing about listening is you can do it while driving, while cooking, during other light activities, and it's not cutting into your actual practice time. Okay, tip number 4. I know, you're gonna hate this one. Slow down. Okay, so this one might seem obvious to some people and maybe counterintuitive to others, but the truth is, practicing fast does not help you learn fast. I'm sorry. Okay, I get it. It's fun to play fast. I am 100% guilty of this. I spent countless hours when I was younger messing around at the piano, trying to play things as fast as I possibly could just to see if I could. And yeah, it was fun. And I had loads of time to mess around because I was a kid and don't have real obligations. But like I said, playing fast doesn't help you learn faster. And this video is all about trying to help you make the best use of your time. Okay, so when you're learning a new song, you are imprinting muscle memory as you go. Every series of notes that you play in succession is imprinting new data into your brain. It is so much harder to reprogram that muscle memory once you've learned something, and to try to put in new data if you realize, oh, I learned that wrong, I need to go back and fix it. It's going to take you 10 times longer to fix that mistake as opposed to if you had just learned it right the first time. Playing slowly gives you time to think. It lets you think about the notes that you're playing, the keys that you're striking, gives you more time to process that information and make sure that it's correct. If you are preparing yourself for the next note or the next phrase by thinking ahead and making sure everything lines up, if you start learning new pieces in this way, your overall time to learn will be much shorter because you're not spending 10 times as long unlearning something that you learned wrong the first time. Okay, number 5. This is the fun one. Play some music you enjoy. Okay, playing piano isn't all scales and Hanon and hot cross buns or whatever. It's presumably you want to learn piano because you have a particular song in mind that you'd like to be able to play at some point, or you have some kind of goal as to what you'd like to be able to do with your piano playing. If all you ever play are your exercises and your workbook songs, you're probably going to get frustrated and probably bored. Yes, I admit, Hanon is boring. Still do your exercises, but yes, they are boring. So I'm including this one on the list because even though it's not really a time saver in of itself, it kind of is in that it's keeping you engaged in playing. So incorporating some songs that you enjoy into your piano playing will keep you interested. It'll keep you excited about the next time you get to sit at the piano. It'll have you thinking about the music that you made with your own two hands and not dreading that next exercise in the book, because that dread, that repeated dread that happens from getting bored and frustrated will result in you possibly giving up. Okay, but don't burn your Hanon books just yet. Yes, the exercises in your book are important. The lessons are laid out in that way for a reason. The progression from one to the next is there so that you can incorporate things that you learned in previous lessons. All of that stuff is important, but adding in a few songs that you enjoy will keep you playing. That's what we want. So just a couple of micro tips on finding sheet music for music that you like. I would highly recommend the website MuseScore. They are not paying me. I just think it's a really cool resource. It's a really great way for musicians to share their own arrangements. Go on there, search for popular songs, more contemporary songs, and you will find arrangements that people have made and have put up on that site to share with other people. So another good tip is check out YouTube. Look for piano covers of songs that you enjoy that are about the right difficulty level for your playing. Sometimes people will post their own sheet music arrangements in the comments, or you could send that person a message and say, hey, I really love your arrangement. Is there any way I can get the sheet music? And a lot of times they're willing to share with you. And you can find lots of great music this way without really spending a lot of money. Number 6, music theory and mental practice. So I'm kind of rolling these two into one because they're somewhat related. So having a grasp on the music theory behind the music you're playing will not only give you a better understanding overall of music, but also give you insight into what a particular lesson is trying to teach you. So when you're working through a book, a beginner book, they'll typically have a new lesson or a new song, and there will be a new concept to learn with each of those that will not only incorporate the previous lesson's concepts, but add something new. Without music theory, you're basically playing a series of random notes in a random order for a random duration. And it's a lot harder to learn music and to retain it if you don't know what any of those notes mean or why the composer wrote something the way they did. So I know this isn't going to be for everyone. Music theory is definitely drier and it is not the most fun, at least for most people. But I really believe that even having a basic grasp of some music theory concepts will help you with your learning, cut down on your learning time, and just help with your overall understanding of music. If you spend a little bit of time with music theory, you will start to recognize that there are patterns all over the place. And those patterns make it so much easier to learn music and to sight read music as well. So some beginner books will have a music theory book that you can work on in tandem with your main book, and it will usually have concepts that are being featured in whatever song you're working on, so you can have exercises that you're doing at the same time. If you're not learning that way or you're more advanced, there are lots of great online resources that are free for music theory practice, and I'll post some links in the description. Okay, so part B of number 6 is a bit more of an advanced concept, but it kind of ties in with music theory, and it's another thing that you can do when you're unable to physically be at the piano to practice. Unfortunately, we have one of the least portable instruments out there. I'm still waiting for someone to invent a collapsible piano. So studying your score or doing mental practice has proven to be beneficial. Looking it over, looking at the score, studying it, and if you've done some of that music theory homework that I mentioned, you'll have a better idea of what you're actually looking at on the page. So there is a limit to what we as humans are able to concentrate on at any given time. And when you're playing piano, there is so much to concentrate on. You have to look at the score, figure out what notes you're playing. You have to look at the keyboard, make sure your hand is playing the note that lines up with the note on the page, and make sure your right hand and your left hand are coordinated with each other, and think about the rhythms. And it's just, there's so much. So as a result, some things will inevitably fall through the cracks, mistakes will happen. It's fine, but this is where studying your score comes in. It gives you the time to just look at the music, look it over, think about the phrase, think about individual notes, fingering, whatever, without the added stress of also trying to play piano at the same time. While looking it over, you can study tricky passages, pesky accidentals, key signature changes, time signature changes, make note of fingerings that you'd like to use, circle notes that you've gotten wrong consistently, write in things that maybe your teacher mentioned and you forgot to mark in your score. Another thing you can do that's a good exercise is to think about how you want that piece to sound and how you want to try to achieve that sound. What do you need to do in order to create what you're hearing in your head and make it a reality? So this might sound kind of ridiculous to some people, or maybe you feel like you're going to look pretentious by having your score and not actually listening to music or whatever. I don't know. Don't care what other people think. Just trust me on this. If you have a few minutes, you're sitting in a waiting room, you're on the bus, whatever, get your music out, look it over, just concentrate on it for a few minutes. And I'm confident that it will improve your proficiency at the piano and save you time that you otherwise would have been trying to split your focus 5 different ways. So that's the whole list. We made it. I hope some of this will be helpful to you. that you can incorporate some of these into your own practice. If you have any questions, please comment below and I will do my best to answer them. So this is my first kind of advice video, so there may be more depending upon if this one goes well, if it's well received. If you think there's something I should have talked about that I didn't, let me know, and maybe I can make a video about that in the future. We'll see how it goes. So if you like this video, let me know, do the subscribe thing, whatever. I appreciate you watching and any support, and hopefully we can do more of these. I have a lot of piano performance videos and accompaniment videos on my channel, so feel free to check those out if you're interested. Thanks very much. See you next time.